You know, in our crazy, fast-paced world, it's pretty easy to miss the quiet shifts happening all around us. But there's this silent tsunami building. It's not about the latest tech or some political drama. It's about something much more fundamental, the human experience of growing old. We're going to talk about the growing number of our elders who are facing their final years completely alone.
62,063. By the middle of 2025, that's the projected number of elderly individuals who will be living by themselves in Taiwan. Just let that number sit for a second, because every single digit in there, that's a person, that's a life, that's a story.
So yeah, this is way more than just some statistic on a chart. It's a collection of individual stories for sure, but it's also a mirror. It's reflecting how our society, our entire way of life is fundamentally changing. Really, it's a story about all of us.
What's really shocking here is just how fast this is happening. I mean, look at this timeline. We're talking about an increase of over 20,000 people in just 5 years. This isn't some gentle, gradual slope. No way. It's a steep, rapid climb. And that tells you this isn't just a growing issue. It's an urgent one that's picking up speed.
Okay, so the big question is why? Why is this happening? Well, it's not just one thing you can point to. It's actually a really complex mix of factors that are changing our social landscape. So let's dive in and unpack the 5 key reasons behind this solitude tsunami.
Right, so we're looking at demographics, how our families are changing, this thing called the longevity gap, the fact that we all move around more for work, and finally, the real strains on our care systems. These 5 things aren't happening in a vacuum. They're all weaving together to create what's basically a perfect storm of solitude.
At the very heart of this are 2 huge shifts. First, the simple fact is that Taiwan is aging. When you have more elderly citizens, you're just statistically going to have more people living alone. And second, the family itself looks totally different now. People are having fewer kids, getting married later, and that classic image of multiple generations living under one roof, that's becoming rarer and rarer. So that traditional family safety net, well, it's starting to fray.
Now here's a piece of the puzzle that a lot of people don't really think about, the longevity gap. It's a simple fact that, on average, women live longer than men, sometimes by quite a few years. And this biological reality has massive social consequences. It means you have a much higher number of elderly widows who end up living on their own.
And on top of all that, you have to layer on the pressures of modern life, right? Younger generations often have to move to the big cities to find work, and that creates a physical distance from their aging parents. Now, this is where the formal care system is supposed to step in, but honestly, it's already stretched to its breaking point. There aren't enough long-term care facilities, there aren't enough caregivers, and so for many seniors, living alone isn't really a choice. It's just the only option left.
So we've kind of covered the why. Now let's pivot and look at the so what. What's the day-to-day reality for an elderly person living in solitude? The consequences are often invisible to the rest of us, but they are incredibly serious, touching everything from physical safety to mental health.
Let's start with the physical toll. Your home is supposed to be your sanctuary, your safe space. But for an elderly person living alone, it can, unfortunately, turn into a place filled with hidden dangers.
1 in 6. Think about that ratio for a moment. 1 in 6. Behind that simple number is one of the biggest, most immediate physical dangers this group faces. Any ideas what it could be?
That's right. It's the odds of an elderly person having a fall. Now, if you live with someone, a fall is a serious emergency. But when you're all by yourself, a fall can become a catastrophic, life-altering event, especially when there's nobody there to hear you call for help.
And the risks just keep piling on. It's like a domino effect. Falls are a top reason for hospitalization and even death. But it doesn't stop there. About 10% are at risk of malnutrition because simple things like going grocery shopping or cooking a meal become monumental tasks. Then you add in the fact that many live in older apartment buildings with no elevators. Just leaving the house becomes a massive hurdle.
The dangers, though, they aren't just physical. The mental and emotional toll of living in solitude can be just as devastating, and sometimes even more so. This is the heavy, hidden price of loneliness.
And look at that. There's that number again. 1 in 6. We just saw what it means for physical risk, but it also holds a truly chilling parallel when it comes to mental health.
1 in 6. That's roughly the number of elderly people who experience depressive tendencies. It's unreal, isn't it?
The risk of physically falling is mirrored by the risk of mentally falling into despair. The constant absence of human connection, of conversation, it's a powerful driver of depression, and tragically, a much higher risk of suicide.
And the burdens just keep mounting. On top of the mental toll, there's the relentless pressure of money, trying to cover medical bills and daily costs on your own. But maybe the most alarming thing is this. A huge number of seniors living alone aren't even officially registered with social services. That means thousands of people are basically invisible. They're falling through the cracks of the very system that's supposed to be their safety net.
So, we've seen the numbers, we've dug into the causes, and we've glimpsed the very real dangers. Look, this is not a problem with some quick and easy fix. It's a challenge that really forces us to look ourselves in the mirror and ask a tough question. In a world that's somehow both more connected and more isolating than ever before, how do we make sure that our elders are not simply left behind to face their final years all alone?